with a bang. Let's not kid. We've seen an interest rate hike already.
Yeah.
We're seeing petrol going up by almost 40 cents a litre. Consumers really look like this is going to be a tough year.
Well, we mustn't forget the fuel price rise we had at the beginning of January as well. So,
let's put
so
that in.
these things just compound, mainly as a function of the weak rand. Okay. So basically, when people are discussing, the merits and the benefits of a weak rand and all the rest of it, you must think as an individual. The weak rand basically gave everybody a salary decrease, because that's what it is.
Yeah.
And we're seeing that in the form of the money that we earn being able to buy less. And the mistake we make is to see it as prices rising, right, when we're paying 39 cents more for a litre of petrol. The litre of petrol didn't change, the money changed.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's basically why one needs to understand that, as I say, we're going backwards when that actually happens. But a lot of it is because of external factors, unfortunately things beyond our control, which is the US Fed. They're busy tapering. In other words, they've been printing money. They want to try and cut back on that printing of money. And as they cut back on that printing of money, the markets, the financial markets, go into risk off. In other words, investors say, oh dear, there might be trouble, and they start selling what they call risky assets. So you saw, for instance, the stock markets have been coming down in recent weeks. All right. That's riskier assets being sold for safer assets. Those safer assets are things like the US dollar, US bonds and gold. So we've seen those prices go up in the last few weeks, for instance. And one of the risky assets people sell is emerging markets, which means that the rand comes under pressure.
Yeah, that's
so that's basically the linkage. So that's in the Fed. Unfortunately, those actions are being magnified in South Africa because we're also running deficits. Okay, and those deficits means that we're not a haven from those external assets. We become part of it. We get sucked into them.
Yeah.
And we need to actually try and rejig the country so that we actually don't suffer that vulnerability. And that means we literally have to go back to a surplus economy.
Yeah.
All right, but it does mean a bit of a painful adjustment. It means high interest rates.
Okay, well let's look at the interest rates, because we saw an interest rate hike. I'm looking at the rand now. It's sitting at 11.22. That was where it closed off yesterday.
Yeah.
And that's not much of a difference where it was before we raised the interest rates. So
exactly.
Is it helping?
Well, the irony is again, this is a difficult one, because the normal economic relationship that you learn, it's on page 176 in your economic textbook, I think.
Okay, yeah.
Something like that, is that when you hike interest rates, a currency strengthens. However, in the last 10 to 12 years, the rand has behaved exactly the opposite. When we've hiked interest rates, we've seen further weakness on the currency, and when we've cut interest rate, we've seen strength. And that's because investors, and it seems to be a fairly you find that relationship quite common in emerging markets, which means it's not yield-seeking capital that's dominating the capital flows. Because if it was yield-seeking capital flows, the high interest rate should have seen a stronger rand.
Yeah.
But it's actually growth-seeking capital.
Okay.
And when you're hiking interest rates in an emerging market, growth prospects decline, and your capital flows of that kind slow down, and that's dominant. So we've got to get to a point where the yield-seeking capital is enough to actually compensate for that weaker rand.
So we've touched on interest rates, we've touched on the currency. Let's just very quickly, we've run out of time, let's quickly touch on the e-tolls, because that is having an effect. I mean, food prices are going up. I was having a conversation with somebody very recently who owns a business, and saying that just the month of whichever month it was that they were travelling, it cost her business 34,000 rand in e-tolls.
No, well, you see, it's ridiculous. It's such a concentrated tax, and that's why people are rejecting it, because it means that infrastructure is paid for by the general taxes in other provinces, but in the province that actually carries the tax base, you've got to pay for it separately. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And that's why it just doesn't resonate. It's a very concentrated cost on a tax base that is actually, feeding other provinces. But here, it doesn't work for us anyway.
Not working for us here. All right, Chris, thanks for coming in and chatting to us.
Pleasure.
Unfortunately, not good news anywhere at the moment, but Chris Hart is the Chief Strategist for Investment Solutions, talking to us about that petrol price increase that's coming into effect this evening. 16 rand a litre is what some people are predicting.
Yeah.
You with that?
I think it can happen. Further weakness of the rand in the short term. Second half of the year, the rand probably will be strengthened.
All right, so that's perhaps what we could be looking at, because we're already just below 14 rand after this increase. All right, let's get you some sports.